The evening had begun like any other, filled with the same weight that had been sitting on the person's chest for weeks. They had been moving through life on autopilot, waking up early, rushing through work, and desired to enjoy anything. Every day felt like a repeat of the one before, and even the small joys that once brought comfort no longer seemed to matter. The city outside was loud and busy. Somehow that noise felt like it was living inside their head too. On this particular day, the stress felt heavier than usual. Work had been overwhelming, and their mind kept replaying every unfinished task. As they walked home, the air felt thick and restless, filled with car horns, hurried footsteps, and the distant buzz of conversations. They wanted silence, not the kind you find in a quiet room, but the kind that makes the heart feel light and calm. They walked slowly, hoping the movement would help ease the pressure inside. Their thoughts drifted as they passed through the familiar street lined with small shops. Most of these shops had become invisible to them over time, just part of the daily scenery. But that night, something felt different. Maybe it was the need for comfort, or maybe it was simply chance. But their eyes caught a soft glow coming from a little shop they had never noticed before. It sat between a bakery and a store selling old books, almost hidden from the road. A small wooden sign hung outside, swaying gently with the wind. Curiosity tugged at them. The warm light looked inviting, almost peaceful. Without thinking too much, they stepped closer and peered through the glass. Inside, shelves were filled with old CDs, vinyl records, and a few dusty instruments. It was clearly a music shop, but not like the modern ones filled with bright posters and loudspeakers. This one felt older, simpler, and strangely comforting. They pushed the door open, and a soft bell chimed. The moment they stepped inside, something happened that they didn't expect. A gentle melody floated through the air, so calm and soothing that it immediately softened the tightness in their chest. It was a piece of classical music they didn't recognize, quiet strings and soft notes that made everything else fade into the background. The noise of the street disappeared. The stress of the day paused. It felt like stepping into a different world, one where time moved slower and the heart felt lighter. They stood still for a moment, letting the sound wash over them. It had been a long time since they had heard something that made them stop and breathe. The shopkeeper, an older man with kind eyes and a gentle posture, noticed their quiet amazement. He didn't speak at first, allowing the visitor to take in the music. After a minute, he gave a soft smile and said, in a calm voice, "Beautiful, isn't it?" The person nodded slowly. "What is this?" they asked. Their voice felt softer too, as if the melody had already begun to change something within. "Just a little masterpiece," the shopkeeper replied. "It's one of those pieces you may not have heard before, but once you do, it stays with you." The visitor looked around the shop, and for the first time in weeks, their mind didn't feel crowded. They noticed the warm wooden shelves, the soft lighting, and the way everything seemed to have its own story. There wasn't a single part of the shop that felt rushed or chaotic. It was peaceful in a way they had almost forgotten existed. They took a few steps further inside, exploring slowly. The shelves were full of music from different eras, some classical, some modern, some from cultures around the world. But the section that caught their eye was a small display near the counter titled "Soothing Classical Pieces." It had handwritten labels and carefully arranged CDs, as if the shopkeeper had placed them with intention and care. The music continued playing, filling the space with gentleness. The person closed their eyes for a moment and allowed themselves to fully feel the moment. For the first time in a long while, they felt like they could breathe freely. The stress that had been wrapped around them all day loosened, little by little, note by note. Why does this feel so different? They wondered silently. They weren't someone who often listened to classical music. Life had become too busy, and music had turned into something they played in the background without really hearing. But this felt intentional, felt personal. It's almost like the music understood them better than words could. They opened their eyes and turned to the shopkeeper. "Do people still listen to music like this?" they asked softly. The shopkeeper chuckled, not in a mocking way, but warmly. "More than you think. When the world gets loud, people start searching for something quiet, something honest. It's classical. Music has a way of calming the heart without asking for anything in return." The visitor took a deep breath and felt that truth settle inside. They picked up one of the CDs from the display, turning it over in their hands. The cover had an image of a calm landscape, a quiet lake under a soft sunset. Something about it felt peaceful. "If you'd like," the shopkeeper said, "I can help you choose a few pieces that are good for the mind, ones that you can listen to after a long day." The offer felt comforting, like someone offering a blanket on a cold night. They nodded. "Yes, please." The shopkeeper began selecting a few CDs, each with its own story. He explained how some pieces were known for soothing tired minds, others for helping people fall asleep, and some for bringing a sense of warmth to the heart. His voice was calm, steady, and full of quiet enthusiasm. It was clear he wasn't just selling music. He loved it deeply and wanted others to feel the comfort he felt from it. As he spoke, the visitor felt a small spark of curiosity grow inside. These weren't just tracks or collections, they were experiences waiting to be heard. They imagined themselves coming home after a long day, playing one of these masterpieces, and letting the stress melt away. It felt like something they needed more than they realized. When the shopkeeper finished choosing, he placed the CDs gently on the counter. "These should be a good start," he said. "Listen to them when you're feeling overwhelmed. Music can be a friend when words aren't enough." The visitor appreciated how genuine his words sounded. They paid for the CDs, feeling lighter than when they entered. Before leaving, they paused one last time to listen to the melody still playing in the background. It felt like a quiet goodbye from the shop itself. They stepped back outside. And although the street was still busy and full of noise, something inside them felt different. The world didn't seem as heavy as it had a couple of hours ago. The stress was still there, but it no longer felt unbearable. They held the small bag containing the CDs and felt a strange sense of hope, something they hadn't felt in a while. As they walked home, their steps felt a little slower, a little calmer. The memory of the melody kept echoing gently in their mind. They didn't know it yet, but this small decision to enter a quiet shop would soon become the beginning of a much deeper journey. A journey into the world of soothing classical masterpieces. And a journey into understanding their own heart a little better. That night, when they finally reached home, they didn't rush to check their phone or think about work. Placed one of the CDs in the player, sat down on the couch, and closed their eyes as the first soft notes began. In that moment, the stress faded away again, and a quiet peace filled the room. It was the start of something new, something that would change their days, or evenings, and perhaps even their life. And as the music played gently through the silent room, the person felt, for the first time in a long time, that everything might just be okay. The next morning arrived quietly, but something inside the person already felt different. It wasn't a big change, not anything dramatic, but there was a small shift in the way they woke up. The air didn't feel as heavy. Their thoughts weren't racing the moment they opened their eyes. Instead, there was a calm feeling lingering from the music they had played the night before. They lay still for a minute, remembering how the soft melody had filled the room, how it had cleared away the noise in their mind. It had been a long time since they experienced a night like that. Usually, evenings were spent scrolling through messages, worrying about the next day, or replaying conversations that didn't matter anymore. But the music had given them a different kind of silence, one that felt warm and peaceful. They got out of bed and started getting ready for the day. As they moved around the apartment, they found themselves humming a tune without even noticing. It surprised them at first, because they couldn't remember the last time they felt peaceful enough to hum anything. The morning light gently filled the room, and for once, they didn't feel like rushing. Before leaving for work, they saw the small bag from the music shop sitting on the table. The CDs inside felt like little treasures waiting to be explored. They smiled faintly and thought, "Tonight again." It became something to look forward to, something gentle waiting at the end of the day. Work was still busy, and the pressure didn't magically disappear. But even during stressful moments, they found themselves remembering the soothing notes from the shop. It helped them breathe a little easier. Even their coworkers noticed something different. "You seem calmer today," one of them mentioned during a break. The person simply shrugged. "I just had a peaceful night." They didn't explain more because they were still trying to understand that feeling themselves. But deep down, they knew the music had something to do with it. By the time evening came, The familiar weight tried to settle on their shoulders again. But this time, they had something to turn to. Something that felt like a quiet companion. As soon as they reached home, they didn't even take off their shoes before walking toward the CD player. They picked one of the discs the shopkeeper had chosen and placed it inside. The first note played soft, slow, comforting. It felt like the world released a long breath. The person sank onto the couch, resting their back and closing their eyes. The melody wrapped around them gently, like someone placing a warm blanket around their shoulders. The music had a way of reaching inside them, touching memories they didn't know were still there. Some parts of the melody felt familiar, even though they had never heard it before. Maybe it reminded them of quiet mornings from childhood, or the way sunlight used to fall on the floor of their old home, or the simple days when life wasn't so loud they could feel their body relaxing slowly. Their heartbeat settled into a calm rhythm. Thoughts that had been heavy all day began to soften. The worries didn't disappear, but they no longer felt sharp or overwhelming. They drifted like clouds instead of storms. After some time, the person opened their eyes and looked around the room. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple living space. But the music made it feel warm, almost sacred. They noticed how the quiet corners seemed softer now, how the shadows felt peaceful instead of lonely. They decided to make a small cup of tea and sat near the window. While the music continued playing, they watched the lights from nearby buildings shimmer in the dusk. The world outside kept moving at its usual fast pace, but inside the apartment, everything slowed down. This contrast made them feel grateful for the tiny space they could call their own. After finishing their tea, they went through the small collection of CDs again, curious about the stories behind them. Each one had a different mood, a different energy. Some were soft and dreamy. Others were gentle but deep. There were pieces meant for quiet nights, some for peaceful mornings, and others for times when the heart felt heavy. They wondered how many people out there were listening to the same pieces, finding comfort the way they were. The thought made the world feel a little smaller, a little kinder. It reminded them that even though everyone carried their own struggles, everyone also looked for peace in their own way. They opened their laptop and searched for information about the composer of the piece they were listening to. They learned that many classical compositions were created during times of struggle, loneliness, or reflection. It touched them to know that people from centuries ago felt emotions similar to theirs. Even though everything had changed, technology, cities, lifestyles, the human heart remained the same. It made the music even more meaningful. The person played another track, softer than the first. This one had a slow piano melody that felt like raindrops falling gently on a window. As they listened, memories drifted in, walking home during rainy evenings, sitting quietly in a garden as a child, moments when life felt simpler. They didn't realize how long they sat there, letting the music guide their thoughts. It wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was becoming a companion, someone who listened, someone who didn't judge, someone who understood without needing words. Days passed like this. Every evening became a small ritual. They would come home, turn on the music, and let the gentle notes ease the tiredness of the day. Over time, the person began to feel small changes in their daily life. They became more patient in conversations, more thoughtful in their actions, and a little kinder to themselves. They also began to listen in the mornings. Instead of starting the day with noise or rushing through tasks, they played soft classical pieces while getting ready. The sound made everything feel calmer, the sound of water running in the sink, the quiet clinking of a cup, even the movement of their footsteps. It turned simple routines into moments of peace. One weekend, they decided to explore more. They returned to the music shop, this time with a sense of excitement. The shopkeeper greeted them with the same warm smile, as if he already knew the music had reached them deeply. "Back again?" he asked in a gentle voice. The person nodded, smiling softly. "The music has been helping me a lot." Shopkeeper's eyes brightened. That's what it's meant to do. They spent more than an hour in the shop, listening to samples, asking questions, and learning about pieces that were known for calming the mind. The shopkeeper didn't rush them. He seemed to enjoy sharing the stories behind each melody. For him, music wasn't something to sell, It was something to share, something to offer to anyone who needed comfort. The person picked a few more CDs, ones that felt soft and peaceful. As they paid, the shopkeeper said, "Take your time with them. Music speaks differently on different days. Some pieces will feel perfect tonight, others will feel right next week." Those words stayed with them long after they left the shop. They understood what he meant. Life changed every day. Feelings changed. And music, in its own way, changed too. That night, they played a piece that felt deeper and a little more emotional. It had gentle strings that painted a picture in their mind, a quiet field at sunrise, a place where everything was still and the world felt new. The melody made them reflect on their life, their choices, their hopes. It wasn't painful reflection. It was gentle and honest, the kind that helped them understand themselves better. As days turned into weeks, this journey became part of who they were. They didn't force anything. They didn't rush. They simply listened, felt, and allowed the music to guide their heart. They noticed the world differently too. Birds singing in the morning felt more musical. The sound of rain became calming instead of gloomy. Even quiet moments during work felt easier to handle. They didn't expect classical music to change their life, but it did. Not in a dramatic, movie-like way, but in soft, steady ways that slowly made everything more bearable. They learned that peace didn't always come from big moments. Sometimes it came from a quiet melody played in a small room after a long day, and every time they sat down to listen, they were reminded of one simple truth: calmness is not something the world gives freely. It is something we create in small moments, one gentle note at a time. The days kept moving forward, and the person slowly found themselves changing in small but meaningful ways. It wasn't something they planned or even thought about much. It just happened naturally, the way sunrise follows a long night. Classical music had become a gentle part of their routine, something they looked forward to at the end of each day. It was no longer just a sound playing in the background. It was becoming a quiet companion that helped them understand their own feelings a little better. Their coworkers continued to notice the difference. People who usually saw them tired, rushed, or drained now saw someone who carried a calmer energy. During meetings, they listened more patiently. During breaks, they looked less overwhelmed. Even the smallest things, like handling stressful emails or dealing with last-minute tasks, no longer sent them into a spiral of tension. One afternoon, while sitting in the break room, someone asked them, "You've been really peaceful lately. What changed?" The person paused for a moment, thinking about how to explain something that felt more like a feeling than a story. "I started listening to some music in the evenings," they said simply. "It helps me relax after work." They didn't mention the shop or the specific CDs. It wasn't that they wanted to keep it a secret. It was just something personal, something that felt like a quiet part of their heart. But the coworkers seemed curious. "What kind of music?" "Classical," the person replied, surprised by how natural the word felt now. "Soft pieces, calming ones." The coworker nodded, impressed. "I didn't know classical music could help with stress." The person smiled slightly. "Neither did I." Later that week, the same coworker approached them again. "Do you have any recommendations? I've been having trouble sleeping lately and thought maybe it could help." The person hesitated at first, unsure if their taste would help someone else. But then they remembered how the shopkeeper spoke about music as something meant to be shared, not kept hidden. So they wrote down one of the softer pieces they had been listening to at night. "You can try this," they said. "It helps me unwind." The coworker thanked them with a genuine smile. And that small moment planted the first seed of something new, something the person didn't fully understand yet. Over the next few days, others began to notice the shift too. Maybe it was the coworker who mentioned it in passing. Maybe people could simply sense the calm energy. But soon, one person after another asked for small recommendations. Some wanted music for studying. Some wanted something to calm their nerves. Some just wanted something peaceful to play while falling asleep. Without meaning to, the person found themselves sharing tiny pieces of their journey. They didn't talk in big words or pretend to know everything. They simply shared what had helped them: soft piano pieces, gentle strings, calm orchestral tracks. They explained how the music made them feel and told others to try it and see if it worked for them too. And slowly, almost quietly, something beautiful began happening. People came back with thankful smiles. One said the music helped them sleep better. Another said it made their long drive home feel peaceful. Someone else said it helped them concentrate during stressful tasks. The person felt something warm inside whenever they heard these things. It surprised them how deeply a simple recommendation could impact someone else's day. They never imagined their quiet journey into classical music would touch other people's lives too. But it was happening naturally, without force or effort. Meanwhile, their own evenings continued to grow more meaningful. The music that once felt like a simple comfort was now becoming a bridge between their inner world and the people around them. They felt more connected, more present, and more human. One evening, after returning home from a long but peaceful day, they sat on the couch and let a new piece play softly in the background. This one had a gentle rise and fall, like waves brushing against the shore. As they listened, they thought about the small circle forming around them, people who were finding comfort in the music the same way they had. The thought made them smile. It felt strange, but beautiful, that something as simple as music could create moments of connection like this. A few days later, during lunch break, one of their coworkers approached shyly. "I listened to the music you suggested," they said. "It made me emotional, but in a good way. It felt like I could breathe again." The person nodded with understanding. They knew exactly how that felt. It was the same feeling that had washed over them the first time they stepped into the shop. When the soft melody made the world slow down, "That's the thing about classical music," they replied. "It finds a way to reach you, even when you don't know you need it." The coworkers smiled and sat with them for a while. They didn't talk much about music or stress or anything heavy. They just shared a quiet, comfortable moment, something unusual in a fast-paced workplace. There were moments when the person felt surprised by how easily people opened up to them now. Maybe it was the calm energy. Maybe it was the sincerity in their voice when they spoke about music. Whatever the reason, people trusted them with their small worries and long days. And the person listened not because they felt obligated, but because they truly cared. Music had softened their heart, made them more aware of how much everyone struggled in their own way. It helped them understand that even the strongest people carried burdens they didn't talk about. And sometimes, all a person needed was a small moment of peace. One evening, while listening to a soft violin piece at home, something struck them. They realized that music didn't just calm their own mind, it had also opened the door for connection, real, human connection that felt warm and genuine. For so long, they had felt isolated in their stress, closed off from the world. But now they were sharing something meaningful with others. It's not through big gestures or long speeches, but through simple conversations. Through a gentle piece of music passed from one person to another, it made them think about how many people in the world were silently dealing with stress, exhaustion, and loneliness, and how many of them might find comfort in a soft melody if only they knew where to begin. That thought stayed with them. It settled deep in their heart and made them feel a quiet sense of purpose. They didn't need to become a musician or an expert. They didn't need to know every composer or every piece ever written. All they needed was to keep sharing what helped them, one recommendation at a time, one gentle conversation at a time. The next week, two coworkers joined them during a coffee break. They had heard about the calming music too and wanted suggestions. The person laughed softly, surprised by how quickly this small circle was growing. They pulled out their phone and typed a short list of pieces that were peaceful and easy to start with. The two thanked them and left with grateful smiles. That night, the person thought again about the music shop. They remembered the warm light, the dusty shelves, and the kind shopkeeper who spoke as if music were a living thing. They wondered if he knew how far his small suggestions were reaching. Maybe they would visit the shop again soon, not just to buy more CDs, but to share what was happening, to let him know how his music had started spreading quietly through different lives. The thought brought a gentle warmth to their heart. But before visiting, they wanted to continue listening more deeply. They wanted to explore different moods, different tones, different emotions hidden inside the melodies. Because every time they listened, They discovered something new about themselves. And they wanted to share those discoveries only when they felt honest and real. Their nights grew longer, filled not with stress but with soft sounds. They journaled sometimes while listening, writing down how certain pieces made them feel. Some entries were short, some were emotional, some were full of memories that surfaced unexpectedly, but each entry helped them understand that they weren't just listening to music, they were healing. Slowly, gently, naturally as weeks passed. The person noticed something different in the people around them too. Conversations felt warmer. People smiled more. There was a sense of quiet support in the small group that had formed around the shared love for calming music. It wasn't a formal group. Of course, no one planned anything. But when someone looked, tired or stressed, another person would softly say, "Try one of those pieces." And somehow, that simple suggestion carried comfort. One day, a coworker who first asked for a recommendation stopped by their desk with a grateful look. "I've been sleeping better," they said. "Not perfect, but better. Thanks for sharing that music with me." The person felt something warm inside, something close to joy. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind, the kind that fills your chest slowly and settles there. "You're welcome," they replied softly. "I'm glad it helped." They didn't realize it fully yet, but they were becoming someone others turned to for comfort. Not because they had all the answers, but because their heart had opened in ways it hadn't before. The music had softened their edges, made them more approachable, more understanding, and that kindness spread, quietly and naturally from one person to the next. They didn't plan any of this, didn't try to become a guide or a helper. They simply shared what brought them peace. Somehow, that was enough. As another calm evening settled in, they sat by the window once again, listening to a soft piece filled with warmth. The sky outside was a gentle shade of blue, fading slowly into night. The world felt big yet peaceful, and in that moment the person realized that music had given them more than Comet had given them connection, a reason to slow down, a way to touch other people's hearts. They didn't know where this journey would lead next, but they knew one thing for certain. The soothing classical pieces had become a small light in their life. And now that light was spreading quietly, gently, to others who needed it too. The calm hours of the next morning brought a soft light into the house, the kind of light that made everything feel gentle and peaceful. It touched the walls quietly, almost as if it did not want to break the silence that still filled the rooms. The person stood near the window, holding a warm cup in their hands, ready to begin another moment that would slowly change the way they understood music and the way they understood themselves. The night before had stayed in their mind like a warm echo. Each piece they had discovered seemed to follow them even into sleep. It was strange, but comforting. Even while resting, they could almost hear the soft strings, the quiet piano, and the graceful notes that rose and fell like a steady breath. These sounds were beginning to feel like something more than music. They felt like small reminders that life could slow down when the world became too loud. As the person looked outside, the street was calm with only a few early risers walking slowly. The world had not fully awakened yet, and that made everything feel like a quiet blessing. They took another sip, letting the warmth settle inside them. It reminded them of the soft notes of the piece they had heard before bed. They had played it on repeat so many times that the tune felt like a gentle friend. They sat down with a notebook, unsure why they felt the need to write anything down. Maybe it was the music that had pushed them into this new habit. It felt good to write thoughts that otherwise stayed hidden in the corners of the mind. They wrote slowly, letting their feelings find their shape. They wrote about how surprising it was that classical music had opened up a space inside their heart that they did not know existed. It was like discovering a quiet room in their own mind, a room they had passed by all their life without noticing. Now, it was a place they visited every time they played a peaceful melody. Later that afternoon, they decided to try something different. They wanted to listen to something grand, something larger, something that carried a story inside it. So, they searched for a powerful masterpiece, one that many people recognized even if they did not know much about classical music. When they pressed play, the first sound arrived with bold energy. It was not loud or overwhelming, but it held a strength that made the person sit straighter. The music felt like a journey, full of emotions that moved from one place to another. It was not only peaceful, it was expressive. It felt alive. The notes rose like a sunrise that refused to be ignored. They had heard that some pieces were written to capture hope, struggle, and triumph all at once. This one felt like that. Way the melody climbed made the person think of mountains and wide open spaces. They could almost picture someone standing at the top, feeling the wind against their face. They closed their eyes, letting the music build around them. It felt like the composer had written the piece using not just sound, feelings, deep feelings that could reach anyone who listened with an open heart. As the music continued, the person felt a strange sense of courage. It was not the kind of courage that made someone climb mountains or face danger. It was a quieter kind, the courage to face life gently, but with strength. The music reminded them of moments in their own life when things felt heavy, times when they had felt unsure about the future, times when they had felt small in a world that moved too fast. But as they listened, the music seemed to whisper that even small steps forward were worth something. Even quiet hearts held strength. The person found themselves breathing more deeply as the music continued its steady rise. The notes did not rush. They moved with intention, each one placed carefully. It felt like the composer wanted the listener to understand something important, that life does not need to be rushed, that the beauty comes from paying attention. When the final note faded, the person opened their eyes slowly. It felt as if they had just returned from a long journey. The room felt quiet again, but not empty. The music had left something behind, something warm and steady. They leaned back in their chair, letting their mind settle. For a moment, they said nothing, their thoughts still tangled with the melody. Then, almost without thinking, they played the piece again. And again. Each time they noticed something new. Soft rise here, a hidden harmony there. It amazed them how a single piece could carry so many layers. Later, they went for a walk. The sky held a soft glow, and the evening breeze felt refreshing. The street seemed the same as always, but the person felt different. They walked more slowly now, almost as if the music had taught them how to notice everything more clearly. They watched the trees sway gently, their leaves making a soft sound as the wind moved through them. The rhythm was faint, but noticeable. It reminded them that music did not exist only in speakers or instruments. It lived in small everyday moments too. As they walked, they saw a few people sitting quietly on a bench. They were not talking. They were just watching the world go by. The person wondered if any of them had ever listened to the masterpiece they had heard earlier. They wondered if those people also had songs that stayed in their hearts. When the person returned home, the sky was beginning to darken. They lit a small lamp on the table, filling the room with a soft glow. It felt peaceful, almost like their own private concert hall. They sat down again, ready to continue exploring. This time, they searched for a piece known for its softness, something that felt like a warm blanket for the heart. When they found one, they pressed play, and the first notes arrived like a soft whisper. The melody was gentle and steady, almost like the sound of someone comforting a friend. The person felt an instant connection to the piece. It reminded them of quiet nights when they had sat alone, thinking about life. It felt like the music understood things they had never said aloud. The notes wrapped around them softly, making the room feel safe. They let the music carry them through memories. It's not big, dramatic memories, but small, everyday ones. Moments when someone had shown them kindness for no reason. Moments when they had felt seen, even when they did not expect it. Moments when they had helped someone without realizing how much it meant. The softness of the music felt like a reminder that gentle things matter, even when the world feels loud. It reminded them that simple actions could hold deep meaning. As the melody continued, the person felt their eyes grow warm. It's not because the music was sad, but because it touched something inside them. It reminded them that they were human, that they felt deeply, that they cared. It reminded them that even in a busy life, moments of calm are worth protecting. When the piece came to an end, the person did not move right away. They enjoyed the silence that followed, the peaceful space the music had created. That night, before sleeping, they left the lamp on a little longer than usual. They sat quietly, letting the calmness settle into them. The music had shaped the day in a way they had not expected. It had carried them from strong emotions to gentle comfort, showing them how wide the world of classical music could be. They felt a soft excitement inside them, knowing there were still more masterpieces to discover. Pieces that would move them, calm them, inspire them, and maybe even change them a little at a time. The person lay down in bed, the faint memory of the melody still drifting inside their mind. As their eyes slowly closed, they felt grateful. Grateful for the music, grateful for the peace it brought, grateful for the quiet journey they had begun. Tomorrow would bring another piece, another story, another feeling waiting to be heard, and they were ready for it. Ready to listen more deeply than ever before. Ready to discover the next soothing masterpiece that would touch their heart in a way only music can. The morning rose slowly, with soft light touching the corners of the room as if it had arrived with a message of calm. The person woke up gently, not because of any alarm, but because their mind had already drifted toward the memory of the music they had heard the day before. It felt like the melodies were still floating around them, waiting patiently to continue the quiet journey they had started. They sat up, listening to the stillness in the air. There was something comforting in the silence. It made the world feel kind and gentle. They stretched their arms and took a slow breath, feeling the calm settle inside them. It was a nice way to begin a new day, especially one they hoped would bring them closer to another masterpiece. After washing up, they made a warm drink again, the cup balanced between their hands. They stood near the window like always and watched the quiet street outside. Birds moved from one wire to another, their small shapes cutting gently across the sky. A few early walkers passed by with slow steps. The world outside was simple, but it felt connected to the music they carried in their mind. The person sat down at their small desk. They did not plan to write, but something about the morning made them want to start the day by putting words on paper. It had become a habit they did not expect but now appreciated. The notebook was no longer empty. It had become a place where feelings and thoughts could rest. They wrote about how music had changed their days, how the melodies made them feel more present, how the quiet notes gave them moments of reflection. They wrote honestly, without worrying about sounding perfect. The pages were not for anyone else. They were simply for the person to understand themselves a little better. After a while, they set the notebook aside and reached for their device. They wanted to explore a new piece of classical music, one that felt like a soft ending to a long journey. They searched carefully, reading the descriptions and listening to small previews until one piece caught their attention. It was known for being warm and full of emotion, the kind of music that made listeners feel embraced. They pressed play. The first notes floated out with a gentleness that felt like a soft hand placed over theirs. It was warm, tender, almost comforting in a way that made the person relax more deeply in their chair. The melody did not rush or try to impress. It simply existed, steady and sincere. The person closed their eyes, letting the music move through them. It reminded them of quiet evenings with warm lights, peaceful moments shared with people they cared about. The calm of sitting beside someone without needing to say anything. The melody carried a sense of belonging, as if it understood the quiet corners of the heart. The strings rose and fell like soft waves. Every sound felt like it held something honest, something human. The person let their mind drift gently, thinking about people they had met, people who had shaped them without even realizing it. They remembered small acts of kindness, someone holding a door, someone offering a smile at the right moment, someone listening when they needed it most. Those moments were simple, but they held a quiet beauty. The music made the person realize something important. Life's peaceful moments often felt like short melodies, soft and meaningful. They did not need to be grand or loud to matter. The gentle parts of life carried a special kind of strength as the music continued to unfold. The person felt a soft ache in their chest, not a painful ache, more like the feeling of missing something good, something warm from the past. The melody felt like a memory they could not completely hold, but also did not want to forget. They opened their eyes slowly. The room was still lit with the morning glow, and everything looked peaceful. But the music made the room feel fuller, richer. It was as if the walls themselves were listening. The person pressed a hand to their chest, feeling the quiet rhythm of their heartbeat. The music seemed to align with it, moving in gentle harmony. They realized how deeply the melodies were affecting them, not just in their mind, but in their whole body. When the piece ended, the soft silence that followed felt almost sacred. The person sat still, letting the quiet settle around them like soft dust. They felt grateful for the moment, grateful for the music, grateful for the calm. Later in the afternoon, they decided to take a walk again. The sky held a warm shade, and the breeze gently brushed against their face as they stepped outside. The world felt kind, as if it had softened overnight. They walked slowly, taking in everything around them. The trees, the passing people, the distant sound of a bicycle rolling by. Every little detail felt clearer. They felt more connected to everything. They stopped near a small park where children were playing. Their laughter rose and fell like a playful melody. The person smiled, realizing that even everyday sounds could feel musical if one listened with an open heart. They sat on a bench for a while, watching the world move without hurry. They felt peaceful. They felt grounded. They felt like the music they had been listening to had helped them understand something simple but important. Life becomes softer. When you allow yourself to slow down, when they returned home, the sun had started to lower, turning the sky into shades of soft gold. The person turned on a lamp again, letting the warm light fill the room. They sat at their desk once more, wanting to capture the feeling of the day before it slipped away. They wrote about the music. But more than that, they wrote about how it made them feel. The way it reminded them of warm memories, the way it helped them breathe slower, the way it taught them to notice the quiet beauty in ordinary moments. They wrote until the thoughts had settled, and the words flowed naturally. When they closed the notebook, they felt lighter, as if they had gently placed something inside the pages and could now move forward. The person ended the night by choosing one last piece of music, something calm and slow, something that felt like a closing chapter. They turned off the lights and lay down, letting the melody fill the room. The notes were soft, almost like whispers. They moved gently, carrying the person into a place of deep calm. The melody wrapped around them like a warm blanket as they listened. The person thought about how this journey with classical music had changed them. They felt more peaceful now, more present, more aware of the quiet joys that existed all around them. They had discovered pieces that made them feel strong, pieces that comforted them, pieces that reminded them of memories they had forgotten they carried. And now, lying in the soft darkness, they felt grateful for the way music had touched their heart. Before their eyes closed completely, one last thought drifted through their mind. That soothing masterpieces were not just meant to be heard, they were meant to be felt. They were meant to help people slow down, breathe, and remember that gentle things matter. The melody faded slowly, and the person drifted peacefully into sleep, carrying with them the warmth of every note they had heard. Tomorrow would come with new sounds, new moments, new feelings. But tonight, the calm surrounded them completely, and they let it lead them into the softest dreams.